Please welcome Owen Cosgrave, Regional Manager at Amazon Web Services UK and Ireland.
Thank you and welcome. My name is Owen Cosgrave. I'm part of the leadership team for Amazon Web Services across the UK and Ireland. And I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you and to say thank you very much for taking time out of your busy diaries to come and spend the day with us here today. We have a packed agenda for you today. I hope you find the day fun, interesting, and useful. And I hope you take an opportunity to network with both each other and also with the many different AWS folks that we have here today. So let's have a sneak peek at what we have in store for you later on today. Well, you are one of over 3,000 people who've chosen to come and spend the day with us here to learn a little bit more about Amazon Web Services. And we hope to facilitate that learning through 32 breakout sessions. We have 48 partner exhibitors, and we're also very fortunate to have a wide selection of customers present today who will either be presenting or co-presenting at both the keynote this morning and the various different breakout tracks that we have later on this afternoon. So this is what the structure looks like for today. The keynote's going to wrap up at around about 12 o'clock. We'll then break for lunch and networking for an hour before having the breakout sessions for the majority of the afternoon. And finally, we wrap up with some networking and another opportunity to have a look around the Partner Expo. Now, for the breakout sessions, we actually have 9 tracks running in parallel. Many of these are technical tracks, but we also have tracks focused on enterprise, startups, partners, and public sector. Now, this is the 4th summit that we've ran in the UK for Amazon Web Services. And I wanted to call out a few things that are new for this year. Excuse me. So, if you're thinking of deploying AWS, why not head over to the area out in the main expo hall where you can meet with one of the solution architects. So this is an opportunity for you to have a one-to-one conversation with an SA where you can have a deep dive conversation and get some best practice technical advice and guidance from a platform expert. Or you can check out the developer and community area where you can network with other people who are deploying applications to the AWS platform. You can also check out the latest games and gaming tech from the Amazon App Store. And you can also meet the leaders of the different user groups that we have operating for AWS throughout the UK and Ireland. And finally, if you're a startup and you're looking to leverage AWS to add scale to your business, we have a startup area on the left-hand side of the expo hall where you can meet with established, successful startups who will be sharing their experience and tips and tricks on how they have leveraged AWS to scale their business. Now, Amazon Web Services, we celebrated our 9th birthday as recently as just last month. And we've been very busy in the UK over the last several years hiring. And today we have an experienced team of professionals who are ready, willing, and able to provide support, advice, and guidance as you begin or continue your cloud journey with Amazon Web Services. So we have local teams based in the UK and Ireland of solution architects, account managers, support folks, professional services, and also training and certification professionals that are available to help you. Now, you can spot these guys pretty easily today. Most of them will be wearing a black AWS polo shirt, and they'll be hanging out at the various different booths that we have during the breaks and also at lunch. And they'll also be leading or contributing to the various breakout sessions that we have this afternoon. So if you have a burning question about AWS, or if you have some plans in the future that involve AWS, why not grab somebody in a black t-shirt today and have a chat with them. Please do keep in contact with us throughout the course of the day. If you're on Twitter, we have a hashtag here. We'd love to hear feedback from you so we can make next year's event even bigger and better than we have this year. I also want to say a big thank you to our partners who have turned out in great force today. And starting with our platinum sponsor of today's event, Intel. AWS and Intel have a fantastic partnership. And it's a partnership that has contributed to the development of the fastest EC2 instances running on the platform today. I also want to thank the rest of our partners who are sponsoring today's event. AWS is very fortunate to have a broad ecosystem of partners, and each one of those partners provides value-add services on or around the AWS platform. So as you're walking around the expo hall today, I'd encourage you to drop by a few partners, have a conversation, and see if they can help you as you continue your journey. I'd also like to thank our training sponsor for today, QA. QA are a major training partner for Amazon Web Services in the UK, and they can perhaps help your organization spread AWS skills and knowledge throughout your business through some formal training. So that's it from me. Without further ado, let's just get this keynote started. So please welcome on stage the CTO of Amazon.com, Werner Vogels.
Thank you. Thanks. Good morning, London. Come on, guys. It's beautiful weather outside. What are you doing here? Yeah? You must be really, really motivated to come here. And I'm really proud and humbled to actually see so many of you having come here. Like Ian said, 4 years ago, when we did the first summit here, that was a much more smaller, exclusive group almost from where we are now. And this clearly says something about the importance of cloud technology in helping businesses becoming successful. So, start off, how is the business progressing? If you have asked us 9 years ago if we would see this tremendous growth, we would probably not been able to predict this. We've been very fortunate to have a very large group of customers that is intensively using our services. And the most important thing here is that if you compare Q4 of 2013 with Q4 2014, we saw well over 100% growth in data transfer in and out of S3. If you look at S3 EC2 usage, same period of time, we see close to 100%, well over 90% growth in the usage of EC2 by our customers. And we now have over 1 million active customers, well over 1 million businesses using our service every month. There's a very large startup segment, those companies that are moving really fast to upset the old guard. And there's quite a few companies here in the UK. Yeah, all the way from Just Eat to Halo, all of them are able to move really fast because they're able to actually exploit these services from the get-go. Enterprises, almost in every possible vertical, we have really staple customers making use of cloud services. Whether it's telco with Vodafone, whether it's financial services with companies like St. James Place, all of them making use of cloud today to be more competitive. And of course, we have a very wide range of customers in the public sector as well. From the beginning, we knew that we could not do this alone. And so, of course, our consulting partners have become extremely important because many of our customers need help. And they need help in different ways, whether it is actually doing implementation or whether it's just validation of architecture. And then there's a number of truly cloud-native consulting partners that we have. I think Smart421 as well as CloudReach are very successful examples there. And a young business such as CloudReach specifically has been very successful. They're hired by the biggest enterprises to help them do their migration projects. For example, they're helping to move Kempinski, the worldwide hotel chain, to go all in on AWS. Or Time Corporation out of New York to move all of their properties onto AWS. They are helped by these young cloud-native consulting partners of ours. And of course, it's really important that all of the software that you want to use is actually available for you on the Amazon platform. Yeah, and whether that is actually born in the cloud ASVs, such as Acquia, or whether it is Oracle and SAP and other CRM systems, or whether it's Infor, that actually is also all in on AWS, or whether it's companies like Citrix or Cloudera. All of them have their software available for you for production, certified on AWS. And that actually puts us in a very good position to actually serve our customers. Now, if you look at the Magic Quadrant from last year by Gartner, AWS sits up and lonely in that upper right-hand corner. And we're fine with that. Cloud has become the new normal. And so this new normal actually has a number of patterns. Yeah? And so let's go through a number of them. Of course, the first one is very well known around the world. It was sort of our first target audience when we started off, sort of the internet scale businesses. Young businesses that start from scratch in the cloud. Now, they're in a very fortunate position, of course. Yeah, they have no legacy to deal with. There's no dependencies on other services or on massive ERP systems or things like that. They can start off with a very low cost structure because they're actually very small at the beginning and slowly growing. And of course, they can move much faster. And what you've seen as a result of this is a tremendous shift in power. Where in the past it was really hard to disrupt these large existing businesses, what we are seeing is that actually in almost every segment, there is an upstart that is really significantly impacting the existing guard. If you look at Airbnb, which I think is one of the major examples in this story, each night, 400,000 people are spending a night in a room brokered by Airbnb. 400,000 people. Every hotel chain would kill for these numbers. And so, actually, if you look at New York in 2012, as the numbers that I saw from them, you know, it is actually that people now not only spending a time in an Airbnb room, they're actually spending much more time. They often spend 7 nights in an Airbnb room on the average, versus 4 nights in a hotel in New York. And if you know hotel prices in New York, you know why. Yeah, and as such, you know, Airbnb, with 400,000 people each night in a hotel room, they only have 5 IT staff. That's all they have to manage their massive system, which runs thousands of instances and has hundreds of terabytes of data to manage. And this is not bad for a group of folky art students that just had a funky idea 5, 6 years ago to get started. And actually, I would like to invite on stage Jeff Wallstorf, the CTO from GoSquared, who has a similar story. Because they were just a bunch of 14-year-olds starting off in a garage and actually are now one of the powerhouses of metrics in and around the world. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. Cool. Good morning, everyone. I'd just like to start by explaining a little bit about GoSquared, so you know a little bit about who we are and what we do. So GoSquared is a startup based in London, and our mission is to provide cross-platform customer analytics to online businesses to help them understand their customers better. So the issue that a lot of online businesses face is that all online businesses interact with their customers across many different platforms, whether it be on their mobile apps, on their web apps, but there's also a ton of interaction that's happening with their sales team in their CRM, or with their support team on customer support systems. So what GoSquared aims to do is to help track this information and this customer activity on these web and mobile apps, and then tie that interaction together with the data and the interactions that are happening on other platforms such as CRM and support. And the result is you have all of this data in one place within GoSquared to help companies have one place to understand and take action on that data. And having this data in one place means that you can create segments and cohorts on the information and respond to changes in your user base, such as if a customer cancels their account, instantly notifying a member on your team so that they can reach out to that customer and make them happy again and save that particular customer. And we now have thousands of companies around the world using us, ranging from small one-person startups right up to some of the largest companies in the world. As Werner mentioned, we started as a really young team. We were only 14 years old when we began building GoSquared, and we've been running it ever since our teens. And back then, the focus of GoSquared was to build the product and build the service and make progress and grow as a company. We didn't have the time or the bandwidth to spend on building like bare metal servers in data centers and managing all of that. We didn't have the resources either to make that, have access to that kind of capacity to build our technology. And this is where Amazon Web Services has really helped ever since the start. By providing us with flexible, cost-effective technology, infrastructure, tools, and services that with no upfront costs or long-term contracts, we were given access to the infrastructure technology that we needed to build GoSquared's technology. And ever since the beginning, we moved to AWS in 2009. And ever since then, they've been releasing new tools and services regularly to help make our lives easier as developers. So, for example, when RDS came out, we no longer had to carry on managing MySQL ourselves. We could just move that onto RDS and have AWS take care of all the operations for that, whilst granting us with all of the features of automatic failover, redundancy, and backups. And that just means that there's reduced ops for our team, so we can spend more time on the important things in our startup, developing out our products. And also, the API that Amazon Web Services provide to all this infrastructure means that we can build really efficient integrations with our workflows. So we now have a really efficient workflow for our developers to use, where we've integrated our continuous integration and deployment systems with AWS's API. So our developers can deploy to our dynamic architecture, which is scaling all the time, dozens of times a day. And whenever they want to deploy something, it goes straight out. And that means that we can remain productive as a team. And in fact, each one of our developers on our team each manages over 50 software projects. AWS gave us the technology that we needed to build a modular architecture, which you can see up here, partitioned into different individually scalable clusters. And this elastically changes along with our customers' needs. And that means that we don't over-provision capacity, and we can keep costs low, and we can pass those cost savings on to our customers, making GoSquared a really attractive proposition for them. And that means also that we can, basically AWS has allowed us to scale our business up to tens of thousands of companies around the world, and we now track over billions of data points a day. And we also don't have to worry about provisioning, because we always know that there's almost a virtually infinite amount of infrastructure that we can scale into. So we don't have to worry about spending time on capacity planning or dealing with all of the headaches around that. And AWS has also been extremely useful in actually enabling all of the experimentation that we've had to do in order to build out GoSquared's technology. When we were evaluating the data storage platform for GoSquared, we weren't sure exactly which database technologies we would use. We knew we needed to experiment with different distributed databases and distributed search technologies. The ability to provision any size of cluster on Amazon EC2 using any kind of size of instance types without being locked into a long-term agreement made that experimentation possible, because we could build prototypes of GoSquared on these different data stores, load tons of data in, and experiment with them at scale. And that not only allowed us to try out these different tools, but pick the correct ones for our use case and be confident that it will scale long-term in future. AWS has been incredibly important, absolutely essential at enabling our growth as a startup. Without AWS, we wouldn't have got to where we are today, because we wouldn't have had access to the infrastructure and tools that we would need to build GoSquared. Altogether, it's removed the hurdles and lowered the barriers to entry in our market. And being able to experiment and keep our developers productive means that we can move faster as a company. And that amounts to a better GoSquared, which is able to handle thousands of customers, tens of thousands of customers. So thanks very much for listening. We'll be here in the startup area on the expo floor, and come say hi to us. And also, we're on Twitter at GoSquared, so come talk to us there. Thanks very much.
Hi, Jeff. Great story, great success stories. And now, as powerful as that the GoSquared story is, I think we can tell you hundreds, if not thousands, of similar stories where companies really have been able to start from scratch with a very minimal budget. Remember that 5 to 10 years ago, if you wanted to start a company, let's say in the internet space, you needed to take at least $5 million of investment because you had to buy all this IT equipment, you had to hire the best IT experts, all of those kind of things. Because otherwise you couldn't even come off the ground. And God forbid that you were going to be successful. Because then you would actually need a lot more investment to buy more hardware. And so for a very long time, I think the whole investment circuit around young businesses and startups has been just an indirect funding of the American server industry. Yeah? This has nothing to do with actually helping your startup get off the ground because it didn't allow you to build better products. It just made it possible for you to buy more hardware, which is not a differentiator. And so this moving fast is no longer just for startups. I think quite a few enterprises have seen the light and know that for them, agility is the most important concept today. To be able to move fast, to be able to react very fast to sort of the feedback that you're getting from your customers. Because if you're not, your customers are going to move a lot faster than that you are. And you'll be continuously in the taillight of your customers. And I'd actually like to say that it is almost impossible to stay competitive today in a digital world without making use of cloud services. It allows you to take your mind off your procurement cycle. It allows you to shift CapEx to OpEx. Suddenly, capacity planning becomes more easier. Why? Because it no longer exists. If I look at my early days at Amazon, how much time I would spend on actually trying to plan capacity with 15% over peak, so much hardware rolling in, and then you just had to hope that no one would run a promotion that would actually outreach sort of the hardware that you had in store. And then if you looked at sort of the days around Christmas shopping, then suddenly with spikes that were 4 to 5 times as high as the traditional days, you had to have roll-in hardware, so much hardware, just for these 2 or 3 days, just to serve your customers. Today with the cloud, there is no longer any capacity planning. You no longer have to do it. It's just there for you at your fingertips. Autoscaling will allow you to just grow by one, and more importantly, scale down as well. Often we think about scalability as sort of getting bigger, growing bigger. But for scalability, it is equally important to scale down, to be able to reduce your cost when you no longer need those resources. Yeah? And so in the old days, it was really spending millions and millions of dollars to actually make sure that you just had sufficient capacity available. And if you didn't buy enough capacity, your customers would be frustrated. If you bought too much capacity, your CFO would be frustrated. And so there was never a win as an IT guy. And so what we see with low variable cost and really the breadth of our platform allows our customers to truly focus on building better products instead of wondering about managing their IT resources. A number of years ago, Nick Carr wrote this paper, famous paper called IT Doesn't Matter. Well, he was really good in writing headlines, but he didn't really mean that IT didn't matter. What he meant was that for businesses, everybody has to do the same IT. It is not a competitive differentiator. And so why is cloud so important for enterprises? Because it allows them to start to focus on products instead of IT. Where your business units suddenly have to move much faster than that they did in the past. And as such, as an IT organization, you can become the enabler of innovation instead of the blocker that they always were. And so we have a whole range of very well-known enterprises running on our platform, and these are just a few use cases of it. Mint is I don't know if you know that, it's the online free version of Intuit, personal finance management. They have well over 15 million customers. They run regularly something like 700 instances, well, thousands of EBS instances. And so they are making use of this to actually serve highly available financial data to their customers. Unilever had 1,700 product websites laying around their organization. They consolidated all of that into AWS. And instead of having sort of a 30-day lead time to actually get a new website off the ground, it now only is a matter of a few days. The MLB, which is the Major League Baseball organization in the US, is a very interesting one. They are deploying missile radars in stadiums but to track all the movements of the balls and the players. And what they then do in real time with that data that flows into Kinesis, being analyzed, being put into models, and what they do in real time, they can show around screens around the stadium sort of what-if scenarios. Apparently in baseball, you have all the time in the world between two actions to actually watch the screens. And so they will do, for example, what if that guy didn't slide towards first base, but would just continue to run right at it? Those are kind of scenarios that they're playing in real time between players taking turns. Singapore Post, obviously a newspaper in Singapore, one of the largest there, actually went into e-commerce 2 years ago. And sort of that was a new business for them to enter. And now already, 2 years later, 25% of their revenue is coming out of that e-commerce operation. That's also how fast enterprises can move. It is essential. All enterprises need to be like startups today if you want to actually be very agile and actually address the needs of your customers. And actually, if you talk about moving fast, definitely the media segment has been one of the fastest moving segments of making use of cloud technology. And I'd like to invite Paul Clark on stage, the technology controller online from ITV, to talk about their services.
Thank you. Thanks. Morning, everybody. My name is Paul Clark, Technology Controller for Online Pay and Interactive at ITV. For those of you who don't know us, ITV is the largest free-to-air broadcaster in the UK. 2014, we had revenues of about 2.5 billion. We create about 3.5 hours of original programming every year. Little known fact is we're also the largest studios business in the UK, and 99.8% of all commercial programs with audiences of greater than 5 million are watched on ITV. When I joined ITV a few years ago, I inherited the online estate, which was a kind of monolithic application stack. And what that meant was we had a pretty poor experience for our customers coming to online and wanting to view ITV's content. And we wanted to change that. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a new stack that would provide a series of APIs that would allow us to access the core data in ITV that we needed to drive online. We wanted to build a platform that we could deploy all that onto that would give us the monitoring and the control of those applications. We wanted better visibility of our infrastructure. And the way we wanted to do that is we wanted to automate everything. We wanted to automate, our builds, we wanted to automate our testing, we wanted to automate deployment, we wanted to automate everything. And the reason we wanted to do that automation is because we believed that automation would drive up developer productivity, it would also drive up the speed of our releases, and through those two things, it would drive up our quality. And we're all about quality. We want people to be able to view our content and have a great experience. And one of the things that was holding us back was a lot of our estate, our legacy estate, we had what we called snowflake servers, these kind of bits of infrastructure, which all kind of looked the same, but actually were subtly different. And when we were moving between these different environments, we were losing lots of time trying to find out where the problems were. So we did this, and we were fairly successful. We kicked off a project, we started building this new stack, started building these new applications, and it was all going great. The developers were writing the code, the tests were running, everything was passing, it was all good. But we were having real problems with our infrastructure, our legacy infrastructure, to the point where it was taking us, at one point it took us 21 days to make a single firewall change. Now we had over 200 firewall changes to make. So this wasn't going to fly. On the timescales that we were on, this just wasn't going to work. So we really had to think differently about it. So we had a healthy debate internally about what we should do. And what I proposed and what was accepted and what we did was we decided to try using AWS. Now, we had no experience of AWS, so we went out and got a consultancy, and Bastion Consultancy came in to help us, and we did a proof of concept. We did a first iteration. We fully built a scripted infrastructure, and that took us about 4 weeks. And that's an infrastructure that we could deploy into a clean VPC, basically start with nothing, and then deploy all of our infrastructure in a way that would allow us to deploy our applications. But a really amazing thing was after the first iteration, and then the second iteration and the third iteration, we actually got down to 28 minutes. It takes us now 28 minutes to deploy our infrastructure. That's the whole thing from scratch, which is just incredible. And the way we build that infrastructure, we build it with the kind of principles that Amazon promote in mind, which is all about kind of how do you build in your resilience, taking advantage of the tools that Amazon give you, and also adding in a bunch of open source tooling. We were able to build our infrastructure in a way that should anything go wrong, we'd be able to detect that failure, we'd be able to spin up new instances, and by using some smart caching techniques, we'd largely be able to protect our audiences from knowing that anything had gone wrong, so that we could again give them that fantastic quality of experience. But we don't do this for fun. We don't do it because we love technology. I mean, we love technology, but that's not the reason we're in business. We're in business to make money, and the way we make money is to monetize our content. The way we monetize our content is by providing people with a fantastic experience on ITV Player. And that new stack that we built on AWS now provides the best stats of any ITV Player experience. If you have a Samsung TV at home, you can go and look at that today, and that's the new stack that we've got. And it's been so successful that we're now going to move all of ITV Player onto this new stack, which is fantastic. But it's not just that that's been the interesting kind of spin-off of this. Other parts of ITV are now looking at us and online and going, well, how do we get that kind of business agility? How do we do what they're doing? And now what we're seeing now is throughout ITV, not just in online, but throughout ITV, in the systems that we have, our core systems that run our business, as we modernize those, we're asking ourselves, why can't we put this onto AWS, and why can't we get the kind of agility that we have in online? Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. It's great stories here. It also shows, actually, coming back to that, one of you in the audience was very friendly to remind me that I just made a mistake. Namely, the Singapore Post is actually not a newspaper, it's actually the post office in Singapore. Don't know who was that, but thank you. I knew that. I just was my head into media that was coming up. So thank you for that. Another pattern that that we've seen with customers is that they actually want it all. They no longer want just a small sliver at the bottom of sort of the stack. What they want to be able is to provision very fast all resources, but a whole set of resources, not just storage, compute, and networking. Because there are so many more pain points in IT to support the modern business that you want to actually take care of them all, not just at the core server or instance and storage and database layers. So if you look at AWS, this is sort of what I would call the state of the cloud in 2010. Yeah? This is actually where most of the other providers still are at. And not even as extensive as many of the instance types that we have. Now, if you then look at the AWS services, there is such a wealth and breadth of services available for you to actually serve your applications with. And whether that is analytics or whether that is in the world of mobile services, whether you want to do identity management, whether you do want to do identity federation between online identity and your single sign-on on-premise. Yeah, whether you want to have application services, development services, platforms, management tools, all of those are available on AWS. And with that also comes a whole range of more sort of enterprise services around virtual desktops, around collaboration tools, around email. All of them be able to run at scale with the security and the reliability that you've come to expect of AWS. The cloud is so much more than just compute and storage. There's all these other services available for you. You no longer have to run Solr and Lucene if you need to do search. You just pull Cloud Search off the shelf to be able to do that for you. Yeah, and as such, I think this is a great quote from Lydia Long from Gartner, who says that you cannot treat cloud providers like commodities, because they're not. Yeah, AWS is so far ahead of the crowd. We have such a broad offering of services that we are truly unique in the market. And why have we worked at this so hard to give you all these different services? It's because your workloads are all radically different. There is no one type fits all for all workloads. You know, I remember maybe when you were in kindergarten or something like that, this was a popular game that you played. Yeah, and remember that if something is a square, it absolutely does not fit into a round hole. Yeah? It just doesn't work like that. And we know this from kindergarten. So why would we now, now that we're all growing up and actually have to choose IT providers, why would you go with an IT provider that only provides you round holes for your triangles or for your square building blocks? Yeah? If you look at AWS, what we've tried to do is provide you with services and instance types that exactly meet the needs of your workloads. And whether that is being more compute intensive, requiring more storage, for example, the new EC2 dense storage nodes that we've recently launched, whether you need GPUs, whether you need HPC instances, whether you need heavy I/O operations, whether you need just thermal storage locally, or do you want SSDs? All of these things, all of these choices are available for you, such that you can pick exactly that, which is the best choice for the workload that you have to run. And there is another thing that is extremely important in my eyes, is that you can make mistakes with choosing which resources you pick. In the past, if you would have just bought yourself a $100,000 server rack, and you've actually made a decision that probably your workload was going to be compute intensive, and after running it for a few weeks, you start to realize that it is actually I/O intensive, you're toast. Because you just spent $100,000 on this rack, you're not going to move out of it. In AWS, you just switch instance types. You just go from compute intensive to I/O intensive. You just relaunch your application, and you're fine. If you're running your database on a medium-sized instance, and your business is taking off, and you suddenly need to grow your database, it's a push of a button to go to a larger instance type. You don't need to buy that up front. And so you can make mistakes all over the place. And I like to believe that this ability to actually no longer be locked into resources on forehand will greatly help the success of IT projects. If you remember all the research that has been done in the past years about why do large IT projects fail. About, I think, 50% of them run over budget, about 30% actually never complete. And if you look at the reasons why this is, number one is how hard it is to accurately estimate resources. And number two is because your customers, change their mind, which is something that most architects hate. The fact that your customers are changing their mind, because now you have to redo everything again. And maybe you already more ordered hardware, and now your customers are changing their mind. Now, in the cloud world, all of this is no longer a problem. You can actually celebrate the fact that your customers are changing their mind, because you're no longer locked into fixed resources. You can actually change the layout of your applications at any time. It's also very important to realize, if all of the breadth of services that AWS gives you, that AWS is actually much more than just the AWS platform by itself. The ecosystem plays an enormous important role, and whether that is by ISVs just delivering their software, but also, for example, a number of our partners are delivering platforms on top of the AWS platform. A good example here from the UK is, for example, Eagle Genomics. They have built a genomics processing platform on top of AWS that is used by companies like Unilever to actually do new product development. This afternoon, in the enterprise track here, you'll hear from a Dutch company, Oven. They've built a financial services cloud on top of AWS, which means that when the Dutch Central Bank approved AWS for use for retail banking, they were able to move Robeco's retail bank onto AWS immediately. So again, this is a platform for banking on top of AWS. And I'd actually like to introduce Phil Sand now, one of the co-founders and chief engineers of Omnifone, the world's first music cloud, which allows you to build music applications on top of AWS.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Werner. I'm Phil Sand. I'm co-founder and chief engineer at Omnifone. Omnifone is the cloud platform for the music industry. Our Music Station product offers music as a service. With 41 million tracks in the cloud from thousands of record labels in nearly 200 countries, and services which manage catalogs, users, playlists, billing, recommendations, and reporting services to thousands of rights holders globally. And we support all the models: streaming, download, background music, and radio services across all audio types, all the way up to 24-bit studio quality high-resolution audio. And we're fortunate enough to work with some of the world's leading music brands, including SiriusXM, Warner, Spotify, Gavera, Pono, Samsung, and many others. So we've been supporting the launch of music services since 2007. And back then, the way you used to build sophisticated and highly available internet services was with colossal software architectures in self-hosted data centers. We built ours in 1,000 square foot of West London. But we couldn't stop there. Because of the high-profile nature of our clients, for resilience and disaster recovery, we had to build another one in Washington, D.C. That's $15 million of sunk cost. But with this architecture, we did achieve our service levels and industry-leading service high availability until real volume arrived. When we had millions of users on the platform, it became really challenging and very expensive to keep every feature of the platform behaving with globally consistent performance. So 3 years ago, we decided to completely rebuild ourselves in the cloud. For us, AWS was the only choice. It really was a no-brainer. The features and services, the rate of change on the roadmap, and the innovation was way ahead of any other cloud platform. But when we rebuilt ourselves on the cloud, we had to do it whilst achieving super high service levels. It was really like building the plane whilst you're in flight. But we made it, and now the whole of the platform runs in AWS. We're all in. And the platform's now a decentralized suite of globally distributable AWS-hosted components. Each can scale near infinitely at a surprisingly low cost, and it achieves that global low latency. And it's great for our developers too. Our developers can come up to speed much more quickly, be much more efficient with building functionality, and deploy code much more quickly. So we've got a vastly improved platform for our user base. And we've even been able to start decommissioning some of our data centers. So that's been allowing us to spend much more focus building the stuff that differentiates us rather than managing physical infrastructure. So the way we see AWS is like a rising tide of features and functionality. Every time a new service arrives, the tide rises higher. Our job is to sit like a boat on the top floating, focusing on doing the value-added applications and services which differentiate us, leaving Amazon to do the undifferentiated heavy lifting of the infrastructure services underneath us. And our customers use us similar to how we use AWS. We do the music industry undifferentiated heavy lifting, and they focus on the stuff that adds value to their business and differentiates them. And it's really working. You know, since our move to the cloud, we've done more projects and signed more customers than we ever believed possible. So now we've got a platform for the music industry, a music industry cloud. People like you can build imaginative and innovative music applications without having to worry about all the complicated stuff behind the scenes. So we've come a long way in the 25 years since I started software engineering as a graduate for Rolls-Royce. Back then, the most we'd leverage is the database. We'd build everything else. By contrast, today, we use dozens of AWS services and integrate features from SaaS suppliers. It's all about leverage and integration. You've got to be careful what software you write. The industry has matured to a point where there are thousands of SaaS suppliers. Each of them have whole teams dedicated to specific areas that we could only deploy a couple of people on. And even the small SaaS suppliers can write brilliant code which scales globally when they sit on top of AWS. So you've got to be fleet of foot. Back then, we used to spend months doing due diligence into software suppliers. Now you can just give them a try. But you've got to be dynamic. You've got to be prepared in 6 months or so to switch them out for something that comes along that's cheaper, easier, and more efficient. In my opinion, those that don't move to the cloud are going to be out-innovated by those that do. Building applications on AWS and integrating SaaS features is like technology disruption on steroids, and it's changing everything. Just look at the industry I'm in, the music business. Over the past 15 years, thousands of record labels have spent billions of dollars building in-house legacy systems, which are now, most of them need to be replaced. Really, the only sensible way forward is to rent features from specialist music clouds like Omnifone. So, since our move to the cloud and launching Music Station Platform as a service, we've got a ton of great partners doing some fantastic innovation on the platform and really making their dreams happen. So if any of you fancy being the next Spotify, SoundCloud, or Shazam, please get in touch, and we'd love to try and make that happen. It's been great being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Phil. Very exciting story. So now, you know, AWS, as I said, is much more than just the AWS platform. You know, it's a music platform, as extended by Omnifone, or it's a genomics platform, it's a financial services platform. All of these partners are able to sort of layer on top of AWS specific functionality that allows you to move much faster. If you would be building a music app today, would you build all that again, what Phil had to build? No, you would start from that point. The cool thing is then, because they are running on AWS, all the other AWS services are also available for you. So if you want to build novel mobile applications that actually have a music component, you can build them using Cognito and our SNS and other services that we have in a mobile toolkit and combine that with the services that Omnifone are delivering for you. It's very, very exciting. And so the breadth of this platform is really, really exciting to us. But we're not finished yet there. Yeah? If you look at the rapid pace of innovation at AWS, you know, we've launched well over 500 new major features and services last year. And as you can see, it's almost doubling each year. So you can expect us to continue to move fast in response to requests coming from you. I think one of the significant services that have been really on fire in terms of delivering new features and features to their customers is Amazon Redshift. Yeah? Redshift, our data warehouse, is the fastest growing service within AWS ever. It turned out that with this data warehouse service that allows you to actually either have a single node data warehouse or a 1,000-node MPP data warehouse at your fingertips for either 24/7 or for 2 hours on a Friday afternoon, really hit something that enterprises and other businesses really needed at this moment. And the feedback cycle has been tremendous. We launched in the first year after Redshift was launched 65 new major features for Redshift based on the continuous feedback of our customers. Now, one area where we've been doing indeed a lot of innovation is in that of storage. Yeah, and there's a wide range of workloads that we're seeing that are really well served by sort of the 3 major services that we have. On one hand, there's object storage, such as S3, block storage by EBS, and then archiving through Glacier. And all of these together provide a really compelling offering for customers to run most of their workloads on. The thing is that I'm saying is most of their workloads. There's still a whole set of workloads that were not served well by these 3 components. And it is because they're actually making use of a shared file system. And we've seen this with large CMS systems, with content repositories, or whether it's large sets of home directories of users, certain dev test projects. And in general, most of these cases where sort of standardized off-the-shelf software expects a shared file system. Now, for most of our customers running this on-premise, this has forever been one of the major pain points. Yeah, you have to build all these network-attached service devices. You have to just like always, really estimate the right demand. If you buy too much, it's too expensive. If you don't buy enough, your customers are unhappy. Performance has always been a problem. And that last one on that slide, upgrade and refresh cycles are one of the major pain points. I've been in situations where just upgrading sort of the firmware on one of our network-attached services, and the firmware turned out to have a bug, and suddenly the whole enterprise is without its file system. So these things have become major pain points in many organizations. We've actually had quite a few organizations that are running services in AWS to provide file system services back to on-premise. But still, we don't have a native file system. Yeah? And so this was the obvious missing building block. Yeah? We need to have a file system available for our customers. And when we do that, we need to do it in the Amazon way. Yeah, so last week, we announced the Amazon Elastic File System, which is a managed service to make it easy for you to create file systems. And not just any file system, infinite scalable file systems. Yeah? With one push of a button, you're able to actually create a complete new file system. It can grow to petabytes, if that's what you want. Yeah? It's SSD-based, so it's really fast. We manage the performance and the I/O performance for you, such that you get consistent performance at very high throughput and low latency. It has, just like all the systems that we built, we replicate this over multiple data centers. And as such, is highly available and durable, regardless of many of the failure scenarios that you now would never be able to serve. And it's really that simple to use. You go to the console, you click one button, you have a shared file system. Yeah, it has an NFS version 4 integration, and as such, you can easily mount that into any of your EC2 instances. And you no longer have to worry about how much disks are underneath your shared file system. It just automatically resizes. Yeah? And there's no need anymore for doing any provisioning or any disk maintenance or anything like that. And important, as always, you only pay for the storage that you used. You don't even have to pay for IOPS or for requests. The payment is purely only for that storage that you've used. And so you can grow step by step. It's not that you have to instantiate a 10 petabyte file system. No, you can just grow by adding file by file into the file system. And it actually is a very high performance system. We manage throughput and IOPS for you. and there's support for thousands of connections, NFS connections, to your file system. I think this will really help bring sort of in complement of the 3 different storage options that we already had, objects, block, archiving, and now with file systems, we really have all the different options for you available to run any of your workloads. Now, EFS will be in preview. It will start this summer, and if you're interested in using it, please sign up at aws.amazon.com/EFS. And so what we see is there is an explosion of data usage within an organization. Yeah, and if you, what is it, the estimation already, if you look at just consumer data, the estimation is that on the first day of a baby's life, 70 times the content of the Library of Congress, in terms of size, is being created about that individual. And that's already a sort of an indication that many of the new data types that are actually being analyzed is no longer just text. Audio and video are equally important data streams these days for analytics as that sort of the traditional text-based analytics are. And it's never been easier to actually get this stuff into the place where you actually need to analyze it. So you can make use of Kinesis, for example, to make these streams of real-time data come into AWS and have it being analyzed there. Yeah, and so we have a number of storage options then available for you. S3, now soon then also the Elastic File System and Redshift, yeah, where you can actually store your traditional data. You can make use of Kinesis to get it in real time into your systems. You can have DynamoDB and Aurora as being major high-performance databases to support your analytics. And then we have a range of analytics platforms running on top of AWS. EMR, Elastic MapReduce, gives you an Elastic MapReduce interface to Hadoop, but also quite a few of our partners are running very extensive systems, analytics systems, on top of AWS. And also, for example, it's possible to use standard off-the-shelf software, such as Tableau, and such as Jaspersoft or Pentaho, to actually integrate that with Amazon Redshift. And so there's a whole range of very broad analytics happening in the cloud, and for very different reasons. If you look at FINRA, FINRA is a federal institution in the US that oversees the financial markets. On a daily basis, they get 30 billion data points that they need to analyze in real time. And they do this by using a combination of S3 and EMR. And while they are actually moving faster than they could ever do, they're also saving 20 million at the same time. So what you see is there is pretty unique for the cloud. You get much better functionality. You get a speed of all of what you're doing, and not at a higher cost, but actually at much lower cost. Bristol Myers Squibb is a healthcare company. Their clinical trials moved from 60 days simulations to 12 hours. Tremendous speed up, not just for sort of the business itself, but also for many of the patients that are involved in these clinical trials, because they need to have much less invasive procedures, much less often than that they had in the past. Financial Times here in the UK is well known for actually sourcing many different data sources to support their articles. They've built a very extensive system on top of AWS where they encrypt all of these data, manage all of these encrypted data on AWS, make use of Redshift, for example, on this encrypted data to support analytics in support of their articles, but also in recommending articles to their customers, and also being able to drive advertisements of those recommendations. Now, I would like to introduce to you one of our very exciting customers here in the US from the public sector world, the non-profit JustGiving, which runs the world's largest social platform for giving. And let me introduce them on stage to talk to you about how they're using analytics to drive their business.
Good morning, everyone. Right, show of hands, please. Who's used JustGiving either to fundraise for a charity, to give to someone that's fundraising for charity, or otherwise just give to charity? Wow, more than even I expected, actually. This keynote could have gone drastically wrong had that not been the response, so thank you for that. Let me show you what that looks like in numbers. We are the world's largest fundraising platform, and as a tech for good business, we obviously focus on fundraising for good causes. So since we were launched in 2001, we've had 23 million users from 164 countries donate the equivalent of more than $3.3 billion to charities. And this is how we see the landscape. You have millions of causes worldwide, and there are 1.4 billion people who give to good causes annually. Therefore, we see our vision as being to ensure no great cause goes unfunded, and our mission for delivering that is connecting causes to people who care. And I think you'll see a social element coming through here. Fundraising is changing. You know, when we set up JustGiving, it was all about marathon running. And asking people to train all winter to run a marathon in the spring is quite a high bar to set your customers. So, and we never imagined that people would be doing bake sales, abstaining from alcohol, growing their beards, and all sorts of things for good causes. And we need to respond to that. And the way that fundraisers invite their friends and colleagues and family members to sponsor them is changing too. When we first set up JustGiving, it was all about email. Email would be sent out by fundraisers and charities, and that would bring in donors. We've seen the rise of social networks, such as Facebook and Twitter, that bring in even more people. And then most recently, JustGiving within our own ecosystem, we've been able to make a match happen so that donors are brought to fundraisers and brought to good causes. And in turn, those donors themselves might become fundraisers, or in other ways, supporters of good causes through shares, cares, and likes. All these things help raise more money for good causes. And this is the nature of the match. It's really quite simple. I won't even go through the formula. The way I think of it is, if you ask a friend, or if you are asked by a friend to support a cause they care about, you probably will. So we've built a range of services around that, and they're built on what we call our Give Graph. We've looked at the 15 years of data we have on who has fundraised for which cause and who has sponsored which fundraiser to understand the social graph. It's all based on graph theory, the social graph underneath JustGiving. We were very proud of that as a tech team, and I'm delighted that our marketing team were impressed too, and they gave us a logo, so we use that at every opportunity. And here's kind of in concept what we're talking about. You can see individuals, you can see how they're caring about, how they're sharing on different social networks, the causes that they care about, that they're fundraising for, and how in turn their friends are offering their support, financially or in sharing and adding their voice to the cause. And here's just one example of how our product set has changed to support that. We now have a personalized feed, so every single visitor to JustGiving will see a feed based on their view of the Give Graph. And you can imagine, we're talking about feeds, we're talking about social, this is probably quite familiar, right? You know, all of these companies are tapping into the social effect. And JustGiving sits on that landscape as where you share what you care about. But that meant that we needed to move to the cloud. There's a lot more compute required behind everything I've just described. And in choosing our cloud partner, as a CIO, this is my concern. We have 20,000 causes have entrusted their fundraising to JustGiving. And in 2014, that translated to $1.6 billion a day of fundraising. And the map is just a snapshot from 1 minute yesterday morning, and each pin is a donation made somewhere in the world. So we were not just going to go to any cloud partner. And we trust Amazon Web Services to run our production environments as we re-engineer our platform into microservices. Another area we're working with Amazon Web Services is that to deliver those personalized experiences, there's a lot of analytics in real time. Every 30 seconds, visitors to JustGiving that number as many people as there are in this auditorium right now, 3,500 to 4,000 people, are getting a personalized experience. And I recommend later this afternoon, my colleague Richard Freeman is running a breakout session on this analytics space. And as a CIO, 3 years ago, we had one source of data across our estate, Microsoft SQL Server. we now have 7 sources of data, and the data is so fast-paced, it's unbelievable. And the nature of what we do means that the spikes, when they come, are big, and we don't know when they're going to arrive. International disasters, viral campaigns such as Ice Bucket Challenge and No Makeup Selfie. Something new we're doing, whilst every charity is a good cause, not every good cause is necessarily a charity. So we've built a crowdfunding product which allowed Lancaster Bulldogs basketball team to fundraise for wheelchairs. And in terms of spikiness of traffic, our 95th percentile is 20 times our median demand. And not only that, but our 99th percentile, our top percentile, is 3 times more spiky again. And as Werner mentioned earlier, it's the ability to not have all the infrastructure sitting around waiting for that to happen, and you can drop your scale when you don't need it. And the final thing I'm going to mention that we're working on is a research area. The hypothesis is that if we can understand more about what charities do and which causes they're supporting, we'll be better positioned to help consumers choose where they would like to place their support. So we're using machine learning, we're using natural language processes to try and work out what charities are doing. And here's just one example. We have 2 very well-known charities that have something in common, but they're doing 2 other things differently. And not only are we deconstructing that, we're reconstructing it into impact statements. Because there are so many charities that we already work with, and globally, that we need to do this across. We can't do it as a human-curated exercise. But at the end of the day, we're just a facilitation. So I'd like to sort of end with one example of people that are really doing the hard work. This is Huddersfield Marathon Band, and it sounds crazy, but they run marathons. It's not just one person that's sort of thinking, I'm going to run a marathon, that's crazy enough, but to find a whole band that will play an instrument as they're going. And the thing that just really takes the biscuit, they're not the only band doing this. This is competitive. So I hope you can offer them your support. They do this for cents. And by using Amazon Web Services and by allowing users to share what they care about, we're helping those good causes to reach more, to inspire more, and to raise more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. It's very humbling to see the kind of impact that we're having with AWS. All the wide variety of businesses as well as non-profit organizations that we're supporting is truly mind-blowing. I want to pick up on something that where actually Richard was talking about as well, about machine learning and natural language processing and things like that. If you look at analytics, there's more and more of our customers that are actually using prediction technologies. Yeah? So where most of the traditional analytics has been looking towards the past, or you now have new patterns also around real-time analytics, there's a significant portion that wants to look towards the future and make predictions. And whether that is recommendations, or whether it's, for example, Electronic Arts making use of prediction technology to drive their auto-scaling, there is a wide range of usage for predictions. And actually, there's a long history at Amazon of us using machine learning technologies to actually drive these predictions. This is the very first homepage, or one of the first homepages, and we actually had a service called Eyes that would, based on if you had bought books in the past from a particular author, that we would recommend to you if new books from this particular author or similar authors would come out, and actually would notify you. So given the importance of machine learning within Amazon, we've always had this point where when do you allow your engineers to just go off and become machine learning experts and build their own things? There's quite a few open source tools actually available in that particular world. Versus when do you actually start providing a centralized service? Well, we did that pretty early on. And mostly because we actually ran an experiment at one moment to have 2 very senior engineers that were well-versed in machine learning and asked them to build a classification algorithm that would identify whether an individual, what the gender of a particular individual would be. And you can use lots of data from the US Census Bureau and things like that around first names and things like that. But that's often not enough because, for example, a name like Pat you would not know whether that was actually female or male. And so the best they could do after 2 months of work was come up with a system that would actually drive, I think, something like 92% accuracy. And so then we did another test. We actually got one very inexperienced engineer and gave him a machine learning service. And actually, within 2 hours, he was able to achieve exactly the same level of accuracy as that these 2 very experienced engineers worked on for 2 months. And so this new machine learning service that we built for ourselves within Amazon actually allowed us to apply machine learning to many more different areas. So there's a few traditional areas, for example, fraud management, yeah, and recommendations. Those are things that you all well know, but we do it also, for example, for predicting optimal inventory levels, or detecting counterfeit goods while looking at sort of the SKUs that are on packaging. We do lots of things around search, and there's many different areas where we could actually start applying machine learning to, because our engineers no longer needed to be experts in machine learning. And so we decided to make this service, the Amazon Machine Learning Service, available for all of you to use. And the thing is that you no longer need to be an expert in machine learning to be able to integrate machine learning into your programs, into your systems. So yeah, traditionally, it has all been about looking backwards, reporting, and we have lots of tools for that. Yeah, whether it's Redshift and EMR, all are great analytics tools for you to actually do sort of state-of-the-art reporting. And then we have Kinesis and dashboard technologies for you to build real-time systems. Especially if you combine that with Lambda, which can be triggered off Kinesis streams, you have a real-time analytics platform that is unparalleled in this world. So now with the Amazon Machine Learning Service, you also can make predictions. And so let's take a quick look at sort of machine learning and the things you can do with it. Yeah, so first of all, there's all these areas, all these parts of machine learning that you have to know about if you want to be a machine learning expert. So you have to know about statistics, about model building, about the wide variety of algorithms available, and then how to transform all of your data and things like that. It is actually pretty hard. And personally, I find the algorithms part the hardest. Because if you know how this cycle works, you have training data, you have sort of features, sort of the models that you want to go after, and then you have to pick an algorithm. It turns out there are hundreds, if not thousands of algorithms out there, and all the academics that have developed these algorithms, all of them disagree with each other, which is the best. And then you as an engineer have to actually make decisions around that as well. It's very, very hard to do. Yeah, and then actually deploying this into production is not trivial. Actually having your machine learning, having it trained, having picked the right algorithm and the right model, and then actually moving it into production so that you can use it to make predictions, for example, whether this order is fraudulent or not, or give it some score, is actually pretty hard. And definitely if you have to scale this stuff up. So there's a large opportunity here to help you all make use of machine learning. Yeah? And so the machine learning service, what we wanted to achieve there was that it would be really easy to create new models, that you would give you an environment where you can actually visually approach this problem, and where you can actually put models into production in seconds, just by the push of a button. Yeah, so you can use all this training data available to you. You can do batch processing of predictions if you want to. You can also get an API towards your model if that's what you want to use as well. You know, no servers that you need to use or run in production or anything like that to have real-time information around your prediction engine. Yeah, so let's take a look at this, how it looks like. This is the new console that comes with the machine learning service. You can actually decide what data, what kind of attributes from your data you want to use, how you want to transform those, that particular data, and how you want to actually move that into your model. And then when you get the results of that, you actually can start by just dragging and dropping, manipulate the model to the point that you want it to be accurate. So in general, what you do is you move around your accuracy and then look at sort of the false positives, and the false negatives that you're getting to decide what is the optimal situation for you. And then, of course, you can go back and ingest other data or other training data. But this is already getting you to a point where you have a production system ready. And then, with just one click of a button, you can either do batch predictions on them, meaning you can move a whole lot of queries through it, or you can actually get an API endpoint where you can actually ask questions to. For example, is this particular review abusive? Yeah? Is this order fraudulent? Yeah? If my customer actually, if customers bought this, what else are they interested in? Yeah, and so these things are all very important to us, and I hope that you're able to use machine learning in your applications in a very simple way, because you no longer need to be a machine learning expert to actually use this service. And very important for our customers, another paradigm is that we continue to innovate, continue to drive new sort of functionality that is available in your hands. And if you look at sort of compute just by itself, in 2006, remember, we only launched with this one small instance type. And now we have 7 large instance type families. Yeah, whether it's compute intensive, whether it's memory optimized, whether it's I/O optimized, storage optimized, all of these are available for you in multiple dimensions in each of those families. But there is a clear movement from moving away from these large containers, virtual machines, to smaller containers in development. Yeah? Building things with smaller building blocks. And especially, I think, the whole movement around microservices is really looking at, you have to decompose your application into those pieces that scale over different dimensions. Yeah, so if you decompose it, then you can make use of smaller containers to have each of the components of your system in there. And so it's easy to adopt, it's easy to do management on them. And if you look at the Amazon EC2 container service, which we built specifically for you to manage your container environment, we've decided to launch that with Docker as our first container type to use. Yeah, so you can split them out, you can move them over multiple EC2 instances, over multiple availability zones, and most importantly, we can use your private Docker repositories to actually do that. And we actually added something since launch with EC2, the ability for you to mount EBS instances inside of your Docker instances. Yeah, so all of these are really important in terms of building new style applications. And also, you can bring your own scheduler, or you can have a global scheduler that we offer you, helping you to actually optimize over multiple availability zones, for example. It integrates well with Elastic Beanstalk, and such that you can use that particular platform to manage your set of Docker containers. And so the EC2 container service is now general available. We've gone GA. That means that you can use the EC2 container service for production in your certified environments. And so there's a new things now that we've gone GA that come with this. Yeah? First of all, of course, it's now available to everyone. It's gone out of preview. But we now also delivered a new management console for you. We delivered new geographic expansion, including EU West. And there's a deep integration with CloudTrail, which is really important for our enterprise customers to really track the usage of all of their resources. Yeah, and so containers are extremely important in future software development. Yeah, and actually, I would like to I almost see this as that containers are becoming immutable software pieces. Yeah, it's no longer that you patch your container. The container is an output of your development process. And this output is actually something that you're no longer going to change. If you need to actually change, you'll go to V2 of that container. And so there's all of these things that are really important in this container world. Yeah, these components that you have, the resource descriptions, the application pools that you run on, and placement. All of this is done by your schedulers. And so it almost looks like some Tetris kind of environment. Yeah? So you move the different pieces in there on top of your EC2 cluster, And then you start to fill it up depending on how your application needs to scale or needs to scale down again. Or if you have new versions of certain components, you no longer patch the systems running, but you just replace them by version 2 of your containers. So all of this makes it really easy with this new scheduler that we've built. This was really one of the missing pieces, such that you can actually build very long-running applications using the EC2 container service. So this is a specific scheduler for long-running applications. It also allows you to make use of ELB to directly route traffic towards containers. It removes unhealthy containers, and it automatically deploys over multiple availability zones. But we even had to go much smaller. Yeah, with Amazon Lambda, with AWS Lambda, we really shrink this to an atomic level. And in my eyes, Lambda is one of the most exciting things that we've done at the technology level. It no longer requires you to fire up either instances or containers. You just write code. You write code, you drop it somewhere in the Lambda environment, and we'll take care of automatic execution of your cloud functions. And we can do this in tens of thousands of these functions in parallel. And we'll only charge you in 100 millisecond increments for the use of this. And there's a whole range of very exciting use cases. Yeah, some of them, take for example, one of our interesting customers out of the Netherlands, WeTransfer. So they provide you with a service where you can upload much larger files that you can send an email. Whenever their customers upload a file into S3, they also have to run some code. They'll actually want to do a virus check on that file, and they want to compress it. And so they had to actually run a whole series of EC2 instances to make this happen for them. Now with Lambda, they no longer need to run any EC2 instance anymore. They can actually have an automatic cloud function that does this for them, that gets triggered whenever a file is getting uploaded into S3. So there's a whole range of different scenarios that is really well served by Lambda. For example, again, you drop an image file into S3, a Lambda function is being triggered to make a thumbnail of it, another Lambda function is being triggered to remove metadata from that file and store it into DynamoDB. This is actually a great slide that I just got last week from Valentino Forlonghi, the CTO of AdWorld. They have DynamoDB instances running all over the world where they replicate their data into. And they had a pretty extensive architecture to make this happen. But the moment that we launched Lambda, their architecture became a lot simpler. Because now they just have Lambda being triggered out of S3 where their core data stores, and within milliseconds, this data is being replicated all across the world to different DynamoDB instances in each of those regions. And one of the areas that we saw a lot of interest for Lambda is actually that for mobile developers. But it's not so strange, of course, because much of mobile developers want to offload a lot of functionality into the cloud without having to run that on their devices. And so we've decided to help mobile developers out by extending the mobile SDK with a lot of new Lambda functionality. One important one was the ability to call these cloud functions directly in a synchronous manner, meaning that you can call a Lambda function from the SDK directly without having it triggered from let's say, a source event. So there's deep integration into the SDK, not only the mobile SDK actually, the regular SDK for you supports this as well. There's good integration with identity management in Cognito. And also new for Lambda is now that you can actually have Lambda being triggered when SNS notifications are being sent. Most importantly, in a few weeks, we'll have Java available for you as a language that you can write your cloud functions into. And so there's this whole range of very exciting technologies that now allow mobile developers to actually extend the functionality of their mobile applications with, for example, putting orders into DynamoDB and then take actually that, have a trigger, take a Lambda function trigger of DynamoDB, go into your machine learning prediction engine, and figure out whether that order is fraudulent or not, and give a score for that, and then put that back into DynamoDB. Now, with all of these very cool technologies, we should not forget another very important area for AWS. Yeah? And that is security in the cloud actually is much stronger than any of our customers can have on-premise. And there's a whole range of reasons for that. You know, we have a very substantial AWS security team with some of the world's biggest, most important security experts working on your behalf every day. On one hand, on the operational side of it, and on the other hand, also in innovating, in building new security tools that were never available before. Of course, many of you will require certifications. And as such, we have probably the broadest set of certifications and accreditations available in the world for any provider at this moment. And there's also a very important network effect that is happening here. Yeah? It is that some of our very high-end customers, or for example, some of our very demanding customers out of the public sector. Take, for example, here in the UK, the BBC or the Transport for London or UCAS, of course, all have very stringent security requirements. And as such, we often add new security functionality to our platform to support the specific use cases of these very demanding customers. The network effect of that is that it becomes immediately available for everyone. So everyone gets access to the absolute top security tools that normally only can satisfy the requirements of very high-end security-conscious customers. Most importantly, you control your data. Yeah? AWS, in my eyes, is the best place for you to store your data if you want to have full control over who has access to it. The security, the encryption tools that we give you, the key management tools we give you, make sure that you're the only one who has access to the data or decides who has access to the data. Of course, it comes with a shared responsibility model. Yeah? We do things on our side. We give you the tools. You have to use the tools in the right way to use that. And as such, we actually give you, in many of our cases, a workbook that you can use as sort of guidelines how you can meet your local regulatory requirements. One of the areas, for example, one of the countries where we've done this is in Germany, for example. We have a very stringent data shoots law, and we've given you a workbook what architectural steps to follow, and if you follow those, you can actually meet the requirements of the local laws. Now, the EU data protection, we have many, many customers, of course, in the EU that are subject to EU data protection regulations because they store personal data. And forever, customers have been already running on our platform because we can meet those requirements of the EU data protection laws. But there's also something that you have to realize. Yeah? So there's in the shared responsibility model, you have to know actually what the words data controllers and data processors mean. Data controllers means that if you store data, personal data from your customers, you are becoming a data controller, and you actually are subject to a whole set of regulations and requirements that you have to follow. If you then process that data on AWS, AWS becomes a data processor on your behalf. And that means that you actually have to sign a data processing agreement here in the EU to make sure that you understand that you get the right service from AWS in protecting your data. And actually, the working group, the Article 29 Working Party of the EU, which is a group of data protection agencies working together, has approved the AWS data protection addendum for you to use for you to assure that you are getting the protection that the EU data protection laws require from us. It also allows you to actually move data outside of the regions, outside of the EU region, outside of the European Economic Area, and still rest assured that you get the same data protections that you are getting here inside the EU. That actually helps you in two ways. First of all, of course, you can be assured that we are actually able to give you the absolute highest data protection possible that is required by the EU data protection laws. And the other area, the second advantage of this is you no longer need to go to the data protection agency to get authorization to store your data in AWS. You can just sign the AWS data protection agreement, and that is sufficient for you because this data protection agreement has been certified by the working party, the Article 29 working party. So all these tools in our world give you security and security assurances that you do not have on-premise. Virtual private cloud allows you to call off the piece of the cloud, connect it back to your own data centers, assign your own addressing blocks to it. Very exciting technologies. Identity access management has federation back into your single sign-ons. CloudTrail allows you to track every access to all of your resources. And of course, Config allows you to actually track all of your configurations and changes to the configuration. Key management allows you to either manage keys yourself with the AWS Cloud HSM device, or to use the key management service to do this for you with key rotation and things like that. And the workspace apps allow you to actually manage and control which applications are stored in your workspaces. But you know, many of you will think that just sort of we're promoting here that cloud is a all or nothing decision. You either go into the cloud or you stay home. That's not the case, of course. Yeah? And what we've built over time is a whole set of services that allow you to run both on-premise as well as in the cloud seamlessly together. And whether that is sort of code deploy, being able to deploy both in the cloud as well as on-premise, OpsWorks that can manage resources in both ways, virtual private cloud, direct connect, so you no longer have to go over the public internet to the cloud. All of these services are there for you to make hybrid IT possible. But you have to realize that in our eyes, hybrid IT is not the endpoint. Yeah? Okay, for a long time, many of you will still have your own data centers, but there will be less and less data centers over time. You know, this hybrid IT is the path towards more cloud usage, because many more of your applications and services will move over into AWS, and less will be running over time in your data centers. And so there's a whole range, actually, of our partners that have gone all in. Of course, we know all about Netflix. It made a very bold move in 2009 to decide to move all of their systems over to AWS. But even in newer ones, so Infor, one of the hottest growing enterprise software companies out there, actually made this great statement last year in San Francisco. Friends, don't let friends build data centers. And this is a really important thing because we have a whole range of these customers that actually have decided to go all in because they want to focus on building better services for their customers. Even groups like Kapinski or Intuit or universities like Notre Dame are going all in. Or even ISV partners. And look at companies like Splunk that actually announced this morning that all of their services are generally available on AWS, where they've gone all in with their software as a service product. The same goes for Software AG and TIBCO. Now, all of them have their software as a service products available on AWS, and all of their traditional software packages are certified for production on AWS. Now, one particular area that's been very exciting for us, and especially seeing all of the growth in this particular area, has been public sector, especially here in the UK, where we've been on the ground for a long time already, and where we see great progress. And as such, I would like to invite Teresa Carlson on stage, AWS Vice President for Worldwide Public Sector, to tell you about our advances there.
Thank you, Werner.
Teresa.
Thank you. Wow, look at this crowd. Good afternoon, everybody. It's afternoon now. So I'm going to give you a really quick view of their public sector business. Today, we have over 1,500 government institutions we work for, 3,600 educational organizations, and over 11,000 not-for-profits. There's two big areas to the reason why public sector tells us they're utilizing cloud computing, paving the way for disruptive innovation and making the world a better place, which you heard from JustGiving today, by enabling world economic projects, economic development, citizen services engagements, and research and education. And in paving the way for disruptive innovation, you have areas like agility, which is the #1 reason we hear our customers talk about moving to the cloud. The ability to create new skills, cost savings for their business, and just to be able to have and consume disruptive innovation, which governments in the past have not really been able to do that. Now, I wanted to give you a really quick view in what's the adoption curve. Why and how are customers adopting? And you heard a lot of this from Werner today, but with public sector customers, there had to be a policy in place, like cloud first here in the UK, cloud first in the United States. Then they had to define what actually cloud computing was. What is cloud? How do you define it and how do you consume it and use it? From there, they created security and compliance regimes. How do you actually control and look at your security and compliance? Then we had procurement. How do you actually procure, which is very different for public sector customers when you have to go through a competitive procurement. And from there, we've seen both culture changes of learning new job skills and education, and then broad adoption. And we have many examples of where our customers now are all in across government, education, and not-for-profit. And some of those that we see are areas that are education, which is students everywhere are learning AWS cloud technologies. Many educational institutions now are moving forward and teaching a DevOps model and are not even looking at the old school method of development. We're helping to bring the best and brightest minds into curriculum for computer science and non-computer science students, because we have to teach the new skills for the 21st century in order for our customers to be able to consume and utilize those. We want to encourage women and girls to get into computer science, and we have a new mantra that we're working on #SmartIsBeautiful, where we're asking everyone to get involved and mentor young girls and women into why computer science is a great program for them to get into. And then skills and certification and professional programs, which Amazon Web Services continues to do that in a big way. Our partners are, and now universities are even doing badging and skills programs for Amazon Web Services, so we can create a marketplace of new skills and personnel. And then if you think about mission-driven customers, every customer we have is mission. And we talk about more mission for the money. And if you think of 3 big areas like scientific computing, citizen engagement, and enabling sort of the not-for-profit space, we have many, many projects taking shape. And one I'll just point out is our Transport for London customer, who's transforming the way that they're actually getting information to the citizens about what's going on in the transportation space here in London. So you can do things like map your journey and know exactly what sites are up or down utilizing cloud computing. You heard from JustGiving already. And then in scientific computing, you have big science projects and collaboration going on, like the CERN Large Hadron Collider project, which has over 6,000 researchers in 40 countries taking advantage of this on a global basis, which would have been unheard of just 2 or 3 years ago. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Werner, and thank you guys for coming. It's a great day in London. It's so beautiful here.
Thank you, Teresa. Thanks. Very, very exciting world of public sector. I want to close off with, first of all, if you guys can't get enough of me, I'm also speaking this afternoon at the last track of the enterprise track, where I'll be actually diving into data center innovation that we've done around networking and things like that. So if you want to get a closer look at actually how all of these regions and availability zones and stuff work, join me this afternoon. I want to actually, so one of the hardest things I think for all of us is to deal with change. Yeah, and especially I think the world of business is changing rapidly. You know, things are moving much faster. There's much more control in the hands of customers. It's much less certain whether your products are going to be successful. And in the world of all this uncertainty, all these IT pieces are also changing at the same time. And it's actually pretty hard. And, but at Amazon, we've gone through many phases like this as well. I want to go back to the mid-90s or something like that, or the end of the 90s, when Amazon, actually the retailer, ran as with only owned content, which meant that we were the only seller on Amazon.com. Yet we saw around us many aggregation sites showing up that actually were aggregating many small vendors to actually bringing them together in one particular marketplace. And we started to realize that this was really something that customers wanted. Yeah, and as such, we knew that we would never be able to compete with that. And so we decided, after many weeks of deliberations, that we would extend our platform for third parties to actually sell on. It had as a great effect that it was really great for customers because they would extend the catalog much wider than that Amazon would ever be able to do by themselves. But it actually was really stressful because many of the buyers that had been the only sellers on our platform now suddenly had to compete on the same platform with other third parties. Now, it turned out to be an amazing change, although it was hard to go through. It was a necessary change because customers have access to perfect information. They know exactly where they can get the best deal. And actually having this competition on our own platform would actually also drive pricing down, which would be great for our customers, not only a larger selection, but also lowering prices. But it created a lot of stress because of all the things that we needed to go through. And this is actually sort of a pattern that I see with quite a few of our customers as well. They are still struggling with change management. But you have to remember that this change is there already. You have to move faster. You have to be more agile. You have to adjust to the market much faster than that you had in the past. Fighting this is like fighting gravity. Yeah? No matter what you do, you will fall back to Earth. Yeah? And so don't fight gravity. The cloud is the place that will help you to become more agile, to move faster, to actually get all of these exciting new technologies in your hand and to build products that you would never be able to do before. So don't fight the cloud. Yeah? Go out and make use of the cloud to actually propel your business forward. And along the way, we will be there to help you. Yeah? Thank you very much.